It's time for Real Estate 101 with the Carey Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors.
Good Saturday morning. This is Carey Brown. It is so weird saying Saturday. And I am here with Charlie, who was still talking whenever it was time for me to come on.
Well, I thought the news was at 10 o'clock. It shows you what I know.
Look at that. So I was just barely joining him. He's got so many callers calling in.
This is what happens when you plug that wire into that hole. Roger, I told you we shouldn't have done that, but we did it anyway. So I'm sorry. Do you want...
No, we are totally good. There's like a side of the table here. So you're supposed to be on a certain side. I'm on the guest side. We're just going to roll with it.
You're over there because of all of these melted wires. That's why you're staying over there.
So my first day really actually live on the show. Last week I was on vacation, so it was technically recorded.
Right.
And so I'm live here today. And so Charlie has broken the computer, so there's no computer.
That's right.
He's tried to set the place on fire.
That's right.
Roger hasn't come through the window yet.
No, but I've made him nervous a couple times, and he's been picking on me for 1 hour, 1 minute, and 19 seconds.
He is still smiling.
Well, that's the important thing. As long as he's smiling, we're good.
Is that a smile, though? I don't know. That looks like I haven't hurt him yet.
That's why Roger's on the other side of the glass.
I know, right? We haven't barred the door. Oh, so I'm really excited to be on Saturday. We feel like we have moved to the big time now.
Oh, I don't know if I'd call it the big time. It's the Saturday 2-hour comedy between Cameron and I. And now, as I was saying before, now you get to be involved in the things that are left behind. He forgets his cell phone.
Sweet.
He forgets his coat. Sometimes he leaves me little presents. Potting shovels, he's left potting soil. He's left actual plants that he seems to think that I'm going to get to grow. If it's not a board that I can make shorter or something that I can fix, forget it. Me and plants just don't.
So I'm really curious, because this is a radio show. So why would you bring show and tell? Because nobody can see it.
He's not bringing show and tell. He's bringing stuff for me to take home.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So we get to take his phone home.
I don't need another phone. I try to get him to take mine, and he won't do it.
Yeah. Well, if I leave mine, you got to take it home.
The funny thing is, I leave right before you, so I won't see it till like the next Saturday morning.
Darn it.
So,
okay.
Yeah, you get to deal with the things I leave behind.
Well, I'll leave it for Tara. She'll be better at it than I am anyway.
Well, there you go. You go.
That girl's a rock star.
Absolutely. So we were talking about appraisers, and we sort of finished that, but I think the important topic that we needed to finish was the whole value thing. I mean, yeah, there needs to be a window.
Yeah,
that was where you were.
When it comes to appraising, number one, you have to have a house in place. You have to have windows. You have to have a roof. So people always wonder, well, if I finish off my basement and I have walls and I have a floor, does that mean that that's finished square footage? Well, in our world, you have to have a ceiling, walls, and a floor.
Right. All
three have to be there. You also have to have electricity.
Right.
So it all has to be there. Same thing with a bedroom. It has to have an egress window to be considered a basement bedroom.
Sure.
And it has to have a closet.
Sure.
So there are guidelines they have to follow.
Right.
So, yes, it's a matter of opinion. Yes, they have to have experience.
Sure.
And the same thing whenever it comes to picking a realtor. There's a thing about real estate that drives me bananas. Whenever I go in and I meet with someone and they say, well, so I interviewed this realtor and they brought me these comps and they show me these MLS sheets. Sure. And that's all they brought. And they can't explain how they priced their home.
Right.
Well, each one of those comps have a different amount of square footage. They have a different number of bedrooms. They may not be in the same subdivision. An appraiser has to go in and they have to, whenever possible, those comps have to be in the same subdivision. They have to be within 6 months if they follow the Fannie Mae guidelines.
Right.
They have to be, unless, of course, it's out of town, then that's skewed a little bit. But let's just say cookie cutter in town.
Right.
Same subdivision within 6 months, whenever possible.
Sure.
You have to have at least 3 actives that can still be under contract because technically it's not sold. It has to have 3 solds within that same 6 months. You have to do adjustments to make them apples to apples. So your comp has to be your subject and then carry it across.
Sure.
Your land value comes from the county. Granted, people that work at the county technically aren't actually appraisers themselves.
Right.
But they don't go out and individually appraise each land value.
Sure.
There's no time in the day to do that.
Absolutely.
Only if it's bare land itself. So anyway, there's actually a mathematical equation to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody's just handing you a couple pieces of paper, that's really not an accurate way to assess the value of your house.
That's when you say, I smell something fishy.
Yeah.
So the whole thing, and this is what you just said is why I've always been confused about the phrase appraiser versus the phrase saleability. And I think really that's the crucial thing. Why, people say, well, geez, there's a house that sold for $2.2 million a block away, but it sold 15 years ago. That's not current market. So your comparables that you're talking about, you said earlier, dumbing this down for me, you said have to have sold within how long?
6 months.
6 months, which is showing current market. Because anything beyond that might be different saleability.
Right.
And that's where I get a lot of people that ask me about values when we had the question about windows. I've even had the exact same question about carpet. If I put new carpet in the house, is that going to increase its value? Well, the part that people always miss on the value skew is the negative side of value. Value starts at 0 without that carpet. Now we have some carpet and it's worth X number of dollars. Then we've lived in that home for 15 years and the carpet's worn out. So that carpet that's there, it has a negative value. It's detracting when there's holes in it, a walk pattern through it. That's a negative detraction. If it's just normal carpet that's not worn, doesn't have a wear pattern, it's just maybe not the right color, that's really not detracting negatively. But when there's a wear pattern, I had this picture 2 weeks ago come through the Facebook message center and specifically said, here's what I had before. And there was a wear path. And you could see the carpet fibers on the bottom. And I've put new in. Well, they went from that negative back to a positive. It doesn't increase the amount of the cost of that carpet. And I think that gets confusing for folks.
It does. And really, at the end of the day, what an appraiser is going to tell you is it has to be there.
Exactly.
Now, it does change to some degree. So whenever they're going through and they're pricing a house and they're saying, okay, because I've asked, whenever it comes to a high-end finished home.
Sure.
So say, for instance, I have this house listed at 5734 Southwest Urish. It's priced at $599,900. A 6-bedroom, 5-bath, 6,438 square feet.
Right.
Huge house.
That is big.
Very nicely done. Open square footage. Very nice. Okay, so if you were to compare that to, say, a $64,000 home, obviously the finishes are different.
Absolutely.
All right, so, and then it's also got a huge shop.
Mm-hmm.
Very nicely done. Okay, so whenever you're doing per square footage, the price per square footage is higher in this home on Urish than it would be in the home that's priced at $69,000.
Right.
So there are factors that change, but it's not drastically different.
Exactly.
So you're not going to see that particular house is priced at, $299 a square foot.
Sure.
And the other one's priced at $25 a square foot. It's not
and
that
like
drastic.
you said there are factors. The factors change, but not drastically. Personal opinion, I think the important point to make here is that there are factors, and you need someone like you that understands those factors so that you can look at those factors and help turn that into English for the person buying or selling that property.
Right. And that's what I was saying. Whenever somebody comes in, you need to know what they know. And they need to... You're looking for experience, and everybody starts somewhere.
Right.
And so you're looking for, number one, are they being educated?
Mm-hmm.
And this is an industry where everybody gets in. You need to know, are they somewhere where they're being taught?
Right.
And that's the important thing. The other thing is, when they come in, are they explaining to you, what are you going to make?
Right.
That's that's one of the things that I find so surprising, because I go out very often, and it's very common to hear that they're not being told what they're going to make. What are your costs associated? Because people think, okay, well, yeah, there's commission involved.
Right.
But what are the other costs? Is there title fees? What is the seller's estimated net going to be? And every step of the sale, you should know exactly what that is.
Right.
It's very frustrating because, number one, if you don't explain it, and if a seller has taken out equity, what if they took out too much?
Right.
And now all of a sudden you've got a buyer, you're thinking, okay, we're going to make it to closing, and, the lender's getting awful close to closing, and you don't see your closing disclosure until 3 days before, which is, on the wire.
Why does that happen so often?
It's just the nature of the beast. It is the way that it is. It's the reason why we go crazy. But that's probably typically the first time that seller, if an agent doesn't know what they're doing, sees that closing disclosure.
Right.
And so the seller says, wait, I don't have enough money to pay off my mortgage. I don't have $20,000 to pay this to close my home. So
seems like that ought to be discussed day one. Here's the bottom line. Here's what we've got to have.
It is supposed to be discussed day one.
Right.
So those are the questions as a seller you should be asking.
Sure.
And should be discussed day one.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the biggest thing. I think, with there being an influx of agents in the market, you need to know. It's just the way that it is. So speaking of education, it's coming up, so I'm going to go ahead and start talking about it now because I really want people to know about it. But September 11th at Atria, and I'll start announcing the time, but be watching Facebook. I'll put it on the Real Estate 101 radio show Facebook, but it'll also be on Realty Executives Preferred Advisors Team Facebook page too. But I believe it's going to be around 2 o'clock. We're going to have another class at Atria, and this is going to be geared towards people that are, 50s or above, but, you're getting to the time frame to where, you're starting to really think about retirement.
Right.
You're married, but, say, for instance, you've got kids and you're trying to plan estate plan. Right. Your parents are getting older. Say, for instance, mom and dad aren't necessarily well.
Sure.
What brought this about is I'd had several older women, husbands passed. Husband had always done everything.
Oh, yes.
Paid all the bills.
Right.
And they had no clue what they had. They didn't know if they had life insurance. They didn't know what their bills were.
Right.
And so, here they are. They're completely out on their own again, and they're like 82. Mm-hmm. And so we really wanted to put something in place to start educating earlier.
Sure.
And so myself, Vern Jarbo, Wilma Booth, Ed Roach, and then we'll have another financial planner there. We're just waiting on confirmation on whether or not the one we had at the last class will be there. So we're going to really discuss that and help people start putting that in place. And if you want to come, if you're in your 30s and you're starting to think about that, that's great.
Right.
Or if you're looking at that for your parents and you want to get educated too, bring them. But again, we'll start announcing the time on Facebook, and then I'll re-announce it on the show too. But that'll be on September 11th. And
that's another thing that I respect about you as a business owner is that you look at the educational aspect.
Well, thank you.
We do that at Topeka Wind Supply a lot. We are big on the technical side, on educating our customer, which is the contractor. Because without the education, then what? And that's where, all the things that you've talked about today, just merely, knowing, there's a lot of variables, but it's knowing what those are that's crucial. And so thank you for that.
My grandmother, I remember when my grandfather passed, she had no idea how to write a check.
Right.
And I remember, and I was 7, and just seeing her cry because that wasn't her. She was a hard woman. She was raised, she had 3 boys and my grandfather, who was a hard-headed old man. And one of the things she told me was never, ever let somebody else control your finances for you because you'll be right where I'm at. And she said, I have no idea what to do.
Right.
And so whenever I met this little lady, it was a year ago, I remembered hearing her say that. And it was like living that all over again and seeing that pain for her. And I thought, there's got to be something. And I started asking around, and there wasn't. There's nobody teaching people that.
Right.
And I thought, well, maybe that's something, maybe that's grandma saying, come on, girl, do something. So I was talking to Wilma at Atria, and I said, let's put something together. And Vern's my go-to guy. Anytime I've got a question, and he was like, okay. So, he's like, tell me when and where, and I'll be there. So our first one was it was great. We had a small class, so it was a good one to learn from. It was probably 12, 13 people, and, they asked a lot of questions and learned a lot, and it was really enlightening. So that was good. I'm also hiring, so we've got some agents that we're looking for, buyers, agents. So definitely trying to grow the team. So if you're looking to get into real estate, I am very passionate about who I work with. We don't just take anybody. Sure. I like to make sure they know the ins and outs of real estate. So if you're interested, be sure and give us a call. Okay, so I have some questions that people have asked me that I want you to answer.
Me?
Yes.
I'm just supposed to be sitting over here looking pretty.
Okay, but Roger says we got a commercial.
You all are in charge.
He's the man.
Southwest Topeka has a good neighbor. State Farm agent Jim Garrison, now at 29th and Urish. If your current insurance situation has you going around in circles, get off the roundabout and stop in and meet Jim and his wonderfully efficient staff. Let Jim Garrison give you a quote and make the Garrison comparison. He's confident that with State Farm's competitive rates, the right coverage, and his unmatched service, you'll want to make him your new insurance agent. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there, and Jim Garrison is there for you, northeast of the roundabout at 29th and Urish.
This is Stephen Parkin at Invista Credit Union. Purchasing a home is one of the most exciting and important decisions someone can make. Let me tell you why Invista is the best choice for financing your new home purchase. First, quick pre-approval process. Our fast decision-making gives you the power to act quickly and make an offer on your dream home. Second, local servicing. We service your mortgage in-house. You won't get a long-distance runaround, but a committed professional whose only job is to help you. Third, experienced team. We are dedicated to simplifying the process and educating you through the home buying process. Come by Invista. It's okay to dream. In fact, it's encouraged. We are your home buying partner. Give us a call at 785-228-0149.
And we're back. Real Estate 101 on Saturdays. Yay. And I am here with Charlie Campbell, normally on Around Your Kansas Home. He let me come play with him today, and now he's on with me.
Yay!
Yay. Okay, so this is the question for you.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay, so Trisha asked, I want to finish off square footage in my basement.
Okay.
And I want to put in a bathroom and a bedroom. Do I have to get a permit?
Have to is relevant. Technically, yes. Assuming you live in Topeka, in the city limits of Topeka. The county now requires a permit. Unincorporated areas of Shawnee County does require a permit for building or an addition. They have not yet started requiring permits for an alteration. There are specifics where permits are required and not required, but if you're adding a bathroom, I would certainly want one. And if you don't live in the city limits of Topeka, I would certainly want to learn all I could about the codes to make sure that the money you're investing in this is going to turn around and work for you. Whether it pays you back or not is not really the point. But as I mentioned earlier on Around Your Kansas Home, I had this poor homeowner had just sold their home. The U-Haul truck was in the driveway when I got the phone call and said, can you come and look at this? They had already closed. The plumber was on the job site with a home inspector's report that said he could fix this problem for $300. It was the last thing, and she was moving out. That whole bathroom had to be gutted and started over because it wasn't done correctly. It was done by someone on the weekends that didn't know what they were doing. The home inspector caught a small problem, big problem, turned out to be the whole bathroom has to be taken apart and renovated. It ended up costing about $13,000 instead of the $300 assumed. So, yes, I would recommend getting a permit, get a licensed contractor that will know when you have to have a permit.
I agree with that. You know, you see it really often. If it's sheetrock, that's one thing. When it comes to plumbing and electricity, that's a whole other thing. And I agree when it comes to home inspections.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. I have an opinion about that, but because of what I do for a living, I have to keep my mouth shut.
Well, you know, you say when it's sheetrock, it's okay. You know, any plumber will tell you the story of the funny leak that they got the call from the homeowner, my wall is leaking or my ceiling is leaking. And the reason is there's a sheetrock screw that went into the water pipe. And literally, sometimes it leaks right away. Sometimes it's down the road. If it's a steel screw in a copper pipe, the electrolysis is going to cause the dissimilar metals to separate, and eventually that will start leaking. And sometimes it's not even close to being related. I've seen finished nail holes from base trim that have been nailed into vent pipe stacks in the wall. And there's a funny sewer smell in the hallway every once in a while. But it's a nail that went into, I recommend a licensed contractor, period.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
Another option is there's this goofy guy on Saturday mornings from 9 to 10, show called Around Your Kansas Home. You can get some help there.
Yeah. I always joke, I don't know, if you've ever listened to the Saturday show, Troy and I, when we bought our house, we bought a foreclosure. This is before I got into real estate. We were so dumb. We were told, well, it's a foreclosure. You get a home inspection, it's not going to matter because, you know, you have to buy it as is.
Right.
So we're like, okay. So we didn't. Knowing now what I know, we were so lucky because the water hadn't been on in 2 years. It had sat through 2 winters.
Right.
And I have seen homes that have done that where when you turn on the water literally shot through the ceiling and through the walls because it had frozen. The pipes had frozen.
You know how to stop that leak in a hurry?
How? Turn the water off.
Don't turn the water on. It won't leak.
Yeah, you can't live there. Oh, my gosh. There was one spigot that we were like, well, that would be really convenient for the garden. I wonder if it works.
Right.
They had taken the little, the little knob thing off. We were like, well, that's weird. So we put a knob thing on. When we did, water shot through the kitchen ceiling. So that one was no good.
Right.
So
right.
I'm like, turn it off, turn it off.
That was one of those, they left the garden hose hooked up in the winter, which we talk about every Saturday morning, I think. At some point during the program, we end up talking about unhooking your garden hose for winter. Because as sad as it is to say, winter's not that far off.
This is true. A lot of the things we learned by trial and error, and most of it was the most expensive way possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are lessons you remember. And the cool part to that is you remember those and you apply those now today as you deal with clients. You think about those things and you point those out. Hey, don't make this mistake. Done did this.
Exactly. And the bad thing in our industry, we cannot pretend to be an inspector. We cannot be construed to be an inspector.
Right.
And it's kind of the frustrating. It is the frustrating thing about being in this industry is because we're also the one that gets saddled with the blame.
Oh, yes.
When things go wrong.
Right.
But we cannot because that is not our part of the gig.
Right.
We just cannot. So our thing is to recommend that you get a professional to look at it.
Sure.
And unfortunately, not everybody takes our recommendation.
Right.
Or they start, they're paying out big bucks and they're really starting to feel the pressure and there's so much stuff coming at them. And you know what? We get it. We really do.
Right.
But at the same time, if we're saying, listen, something about this doesn't really look right, and we're talking foundations or this looks like a home job.
Right.
You really should look at getting this inspection done. We're saying that because we're worried.
Sure.
Listen.
Right.
I get it. It's going to cost you another $150 or it's going to cost you $300. Pay it.
But how much is it going to save you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
It's just, it is what it is. And there are periods of the contract that you can get out of it. Mm-hmm. And those numbers are numbers you need to know. And those inspections are the things that you need to do in order to have those numbers to get out of it.
There's a really easy way to solve all these problems.
Listen.
Hire you.
Yeah.
Be done with it.
Exactly.
I mean, I'm a simple guy, right? Cameron likes to dumb things down for me. Let's dumb this down. Hire Karey.
I like the way you think.
Well, it's simple. Problem solved. Next.
We just really want people to be protected. And there are so many things that go on with it. But you know what? And every house, and we tell sellers the same thing. It's the way it is. There's going to be something wrong with your house. It's a home. It's the same thing when you buy a car. There's going to be something wrong with it.
Exactly right.
It's the way that it is. You live in it. Nobody's house is perfect. Your house can't be clean all the time. If it is, please come clean mine.
And mine.
Yeah.
I've got a shop that is a mess.
Yeah. I would love to know what you're on. I might need it if it's not illegal. So, it's just the way that it is. But nothing's perfect, and we can make it through it. So, again, just ask the questions. Whenever you're buying a home, we're going to educate you through it. We're going to try and prepare you as much as possible, and you're going to love your home. You're going to work on it. My husband and I have been living in our home for 16 years. We work on it constantly. It's a continual process.
Sure.
What do I sometimes wish we'd bought new? Yeah, but then what will we do with our spare time?
There you go. That's absolutely right. Take more vacations.
Yeah. I still think we would get bored.
That's true.
It's
very true.
Our kids are growing up. Now all we do is laugh at the dogs.
And if that boredom ever sets in, I have a shop building that really needs cleaned.
I had one more question. I don't know if you're going to have an opinion on this or not, but so somebody asked, what do I do whenever I'm trying to sell my house and a renter lives next door and they're a pig?
Renters next door being a pig. Well, you could be a bigger pig. I'm just kidding. Quite honestly, what you do with a neighbor that's a problem, I have varied opinions on that, but they're not ones that I should share on here. But I do have some great solutions. Charlie at ArrangerKSHome.com. I'll be more than happy to tell you.
I recommend that they call HCCI, which is Housing and Credit Counseling. They do have people on staff that deal with that.
I thought you just meant the neighbor was annoying. You mean they really have a problem. Code enforcement.
Yeah.
That they and you stay on code enforcement. The squeaky wheel thing, you call back.
Yeah.
You call back.
Yeah. Mediation, HCCI would probably be a good, helpful thing in code enforcement too.
Yep.
Absolutely. And so if you're looking to buy a home, be sure and check out our website. It's preferredadvisorsteam.com. We have more homes on our website than Zillow. And the reason why is not all of the MLSs syndicate to Zillow because they don't want to have to buy their business back from Zillow. So it has the Kansas City MLS, the Lawrence, Topeka, and Manhattan. It's all of Northeast Kansas. Be sure and check it out. You can find all of those homes there. You can also ask for your home value there. So be sure and check it out. You can also find our Real Estate 101 and ask questions there on Facebook, and find our team page on Facebook there too. Thanks for listening to Real Estate 101.
Thank you for listening to Real Estate 101 with the Karey Brown team from Realty Executives Preferred Advisors.